So our task is to get through this data structure however creatively we want and figure out which room our suspects were not in. So for example, Miss Scarlett on that night, she was in the conservatory. Reverend Green, he was in the kitchen. Colonel Mustard was in the billiards room, etc. So we want to find out who was not, which room no one was in.
Oh, but we only need the room, right?
What?
You only need the room?
Just the room.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if no one was in there, then, you know what I mean? Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So I have our data structure here. Let's get it in JavaScript and also in JavaScript. All right. Oops. So, how did you guys attempt it? Anyone attempt it? What?
I started by creating a variable not in room.
Okay.
And tried using reduce.
Mm-hmm. So we have some not in room function, perhaps. Maybe we want to make this fancy. Okay. And then maybe reduce. Okay. So for our list, probably for reduce, we want to do new development. And maybe not in room is our callback. And so what we want to take for this is what? What do we want it to return? We want it to return maybe an array of rooms. You know, living room, bathroom, or something like that. Seems reasonable. So we want it to return an array. And then, so if we wanted to return an array, we should start with an initial value of an empty array. That's a trick. And we want to make sure that we want to push that value to our memo. Dot push, whatever it is that we're going to push. Okay. So what's this first thing? Maybe like the room?
Rooms.
Ah, good catch. Rooms. So really, this is going to be the suspect. And then we have to get into suspect.rooms, right? Because reduce is just going to loop through the top level. And so the first object in our top level is a suspect. So if we want to get to the rooms, we have to reference it like this, suspect.rooms. And then we eventually want to push the room where, like, they're not there. No one was there. Something like that. Okay? All right. So what do we have to do next?
The way I did it, or tried to do it, was just take all of the rooms arrays and then concat them together.
And then loop and
So
see.
that you'd have a key and object. No, you'd have like a pair for each entry that would be either room and then true or false.
So the data structure you created looked like what? It was
So
an
it'd be
object?
like- it was an array of objects that had room and then Boolean for each entry.
Got it. So it would be like billiards room, like that.
Yeah,
Ah, okay.
but I mean, I don't think that's,
So and it would return true if it was not in the room. So no one was in the billiards room, it would be true. Is that what you were thinking?
well, I was gonna start with just the, like, put all the arrays in to get it out of the, actually, there's no point in doing that, never mind. Should
So
put them
you
all together
would-
first
you
and
would
then
have
go through and reduce it?
An array of like this?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So that's another thing we could do is we could, and then you can reduce this
mhm.
too.
But we might not need to reduce twice.
What's that?
We might not need to reduce twice, and that's a second level thing, so.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to loop. I think we will have to reduce twice. So do some sort of reduce-like functionality because we need to figure out which ones are false here and come up with a list of all of the false ones. And then we need to do it for all of them. And then we need to do it across all of the suspects. So it's kind of a two-dimensional thing. Okay. All right, so where were we? So we have two approaches. We can reduce this array after we create this data structure. Or we can try to all do it in one go. Which would be something like is this, do you guys see what I'm doing? So what we want to do in this reduce is we want to return an array of all of the falses. So for example, for Miss Scarlet, we want to return the billiards room, the ballroom, and the kitchen. And then we want to reduce it again from, so eventually, let's see, so we'll have our, for each suspect, we're going to get an array. And then we need to flatten that array. No. Then we need to make a opposite unique. So if there's a duplicate, we need to remove it. Does that make sense? So the first time we reduce it, we're going to get kitchen, ballroom, and billiard room. Okay, for Miss Scarlet. And then the next person, it's going to be something like this. Ballroom, conservatory, dining room. There's some more rooms. Yeah. Let's just say so when we reduce these two, well, what we really want to do is compare between these two data structures and see, so if these two are shared, we want to keep it. If this one's not shared, we don't want to keep it, because that means that this person, Reverend Green, had been in the billiards room. Can I get thumbs? Are you guys following? Okay. So getting from here, we need to somehow, we need to find, we can use a difference. We can do the difference of the arrays. So I believe there is something called difference. Let's check out the documentation. All right. So it creates an array of array values not included in the other, blah, blah, blah. Perfect. So that's what we'll do. We'll use difference for those. Okay. So maybe we don't need to reduce so many times after all. Yay. That was going to get a little crazy. So let's call this our, so we're going to get multiple arrays and I'm going to store it. We can store it in an object or we can store it in an array. And I'm just thinking, what is going to be the best method of doing that? I'll just put it in an array. Why not? Okay. So as we reduce rooms, not rooms. So these are all let's call these the empty rooms. Okay. Okay. So we'll reduce it. This is going to return an array. Hold on a second. There we go. Room memo. Suspect.rooms. Then we need to loop through this. Okay. All right. Let's just do one thing at a time. So let's say if, so we want to say if it's false, so if suspect.rooms is false, memo.push, sorry, we want to say room here, push the room, and then you want to return memo. Okay? So what we're doing here is we're looping through the suspect.rooms. For each room, we're seeing if the value is false. If it is, we're going to push it into our memo, which is an array, because we initialize it as an array. So this is for one suspect. So at the end of this, we're going to create this empty rooms variable. Okay, but we need to do that for multiple people. Okay? Seemed a lot simpler in my head when I wrote that exercise. Okay, so let's just map this. Do we want to map? So we want it to return, yeah. So we want to map it. Map the new development over not in room. And this is going to be our not in rooms. So that this is going to loop over new development. It's going to pass our suspect object into this function. Okay? And then we're going to reduce the suspect.rooms, which is an array. This is going to return an array of all the empty rooms. So map is going to be an array of arrays of all the empty rooms.
Could you do that one more time?
Yeah. Okay. So new development. Let me just put a word wrap here. Okay. So new development, right, is an array of objects. We're going to map over it. So this, we're looping through, and we want to map because we want the array to be the same length as the array that we're passing. Yeah? So here's our first item that's going to get passed into not in room. That's our suspect. We're going to reduce the suspect rooms, right? So we're digging into the suspect rooms. We're going to pass it the room, right? That's just how reduce works, and the memo. We're going to initialize it as an empty array. So every time we loop through for each room, if it's false, we're going to push a new room into memo and return it. So the first time it finds an empty room, it's going to push kitchen. It's going to return memo, which is an array. You know, it's going to have an array with kitchen in it. If it's true, it's just going to return memo anyway. It's not going to add anything to it, though. So it's like a fancy filter. Do you guys see how that works? Okay. And then we're going to return that array. So that would look something like this. And then map is going to start looking something like this. And then the second time it goes through, it will look something like this. Yeah? And then we'll have this data structure, and then we want to difference it, and that will give us the rooms that no one has been in. Does that make sense? So then we would say difference not in rooms. And that will give us our solution.
How does it know to, it's kind of right below return memo, it's got that empty array. How does it know to push memo into, is that where it's pushing?
Yeah, this push
Yeah.
is going to be pushed into this empty array. Because this is the initial value. So for reduce, you can pass nothing as the initial value, and it will choose the first item in the array. Or you can give it your own initial value, and you can define the behavior in the callback. But a simpler version would really be to use just a filter. But filter is just a type of reduce.
So wouldn't difference give, in this example, give billiard room
Yes.
as the difference? So then kitchen and ballroom would still be valid options as the no room.
Oh, good point. Maybe I did it backwards. Hold on. Difference. Yeah, we don't want the difference. We want the not difference. Creates an array of values not included. So close. So close.
You'd want the room that not shows up the most, but shows up exactly the same number of times as there are suspects, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So we can maybe negate difference. Let's see. Creates a function that negates the results of the predicate function. So is even, filter, negate is even, will return odd. Yeah, maybe if we do a difference and we negate it. To make it more complicated. Why not? Oh wait, but this is not a function. So maybe,
Well, you'd be negating the difference, right?
well, it has to be a predicate. I don't know that that'll work. Oh, maybe there's a deep unique. Unique. Let's see. No. Probably one of these ones. 3, 1 and 3. I really want to use, I can do it logically in the code, but I really want to use a Lodash method.
Is there like an array intersection or something?
Yeah, that's what I was looking. What is this?
Yep. There's an underscore or a Lodash intersection.
Nice.
With, yep.
Let's do that. I knew there had to be something. There we go. And now we want, it would return this. All right. What do you think? A little crazy? Any questions? Yeah, over the head. I mean, it's pretty much over my head too. Okay. All right. I'm thinking about this. So we can also easily use a filter here to do the same thing as this reduce is doing. Cool. All right. Now you guys are like, I never want to use reduce again. That's what they say, like, people who criticize reduce say it's too complicated, so the only thing that people can do with it is add numbers. But the people who are really into it are like really into it. I like it just for the riddles, like I said at the beginning of the class. I really like riddles and mysteries and kind of like figuring stuff out. You know, that's what I like about it. It kind of is like a riddle for me, how to use reduce.